think I'm going to be the champion. I'm going to be the champion.
He's misguided, and I think he's got it wrong.
We will not give up. We will not give up. We will try everything to make it.
I think I've got to win here.
We can fight it out on the circuit.
Everything to play for. One race, it's terrific. 1 point in front. Looking forward to every day now. You couldn't have hoped for a more thrilling final race.
ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Welcome to the land down under, where we are about to make history. The Grand Prix of Australia in Adelaide will give us either the first world driving champion from Germany or the first second-generation titleist. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Adelaide rests on the southern coast of Australia, and it has been in this situation before. Back in 1986, the title was to have been decided between Williams teammates Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet. But when Piquet spun himself out of contention early on, Alain Prost of France took over in the McLaren. Mansell tried to make his charge, but then in an explosive moment lost a rear tire on his car. Piquet was called to the pits for a precautionary tire change, and Prost came from third in the championship to take his second world title. This year, Germany's Michael Schumacher opened a huge lead over Damon Hill in the first half of the season, but then suspensions and disqualifications allowed Hill to close it up. 3 races ago, it was a 1-point championship. 2 races ago, it opened to 5, and then a week ago in Japan, back down to 1. At Derek Daly, that 1 point can be a great temptation.
Witness Japan 89, when the World Championship was won by eliminating your closest opposition. Alain Prost squeezes Ayrton Senna at the chicane, and he steps out as the new world. Let's open up the daily news. It was confirmed this week that Sauber will continue in Formula One, and that Ford of Germany has paved the way for them to have exclusive use of Ford's Zetec R engines. Frentzen will also stay. No problem to get a super license this year. With the debut of Jean-Denis Delatraz for Larousse, it gives us 46 different drivers in Formula One this season. The specialist motorsports media have been creating some of their own controversy recently. The Italian press has accused Gerhard Berger of inventing engine problems in Japan in order to pull out of the terrible conditions. A casual comment by Damon Hill got blown out of proportion in England when the Brits accused Frank Williams of not paying Damon fair market value. Nigel Mansell threatened to walk out of the pole winners' press conference when it was suggested that he might deliberately block Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, in qualifying, he survived this scare with Johnny Herbert. Schumacher, when pushed hard by Mansell, had this terrible moment in qualifying when he destroyed his favourite race car against the crash barriers, got out and said, "No problem, I'm finished with that one. We have plenty more race cars."
Thank you, Derek. Damon Hill said it best. This is the ultimate race weekend. This ESPN Speed World presentation is brought to you by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by your local Yamaha dealer, who invites you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles. From high above Victoria Park horse racing circuit, it has been turned over to the mechanical horses of the Formula One World Championship. Bob Varsha, Derek Daly with you. Let's turn immediately to our Yamaha starting grid. On the pole, for the first time since that incredible race in 1986, Nigel Mansell of Great Britain, and the Williams Renault. In 7 visits to Adelaide, he has never won here. Next to him, the man with a 1-point lead in his effort to become the first German world driving champion in the Benetton Ford, Michael Schumacher. On row 2, son of the late Graham Hill, Damon Hill, 1 point down in his effort to be the first second-generation world champion. He'll be in the Williams Renault. Next to him, a possible spoiler, a lightning starter, Finn Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren Peugeot. On row 3, All Jordan, Rubens Barrichello of Brazil. Next to him from Northern Ireland, Eddie Irvine, the second All Jordan row of the season. Row 4 will be Johnny Herbert of Great Britain, still coming to terms with the Benetton Ford, his 3rd team of the year. Next to him, Jean Alesi of France in the Ferrari, second quick in the morning warm-up. Turning to row 5, Martin Brundle of Great Britain, also in the top 5 in the warm-up in what may be his last race for McLaren Peugeot. Next to him, Heinz-Harald Frentzen of Germany, a new signee for Sauber for 1995. On row 6, Gerhard Berger of Austria, also quick in the warm-up, but he put it off into the gravel trap. Next to him, Olivier Panis of France, continuing his good work for the Ligier Renault team. Row 7 will be Mark Blundell of Great Britain in the Tyrrell Yamaha, next to the Lotus of Italian Sandro Zanardi. Row 8, Ukio Katayama of Japan in the Tyrrell, and the Minardi of Michele Alboreto of Italy, who is bidding farewell to Formula One this weekend. Row 9 will be JJ Leto of Finland and the Sauber next to the Minardi of Italian Pierluigi Martini. Row 10, Christian Fittipaldi of Brazil in the footwork, next to the Ligier of Frenchman Frank Lagorce, his second Grand Prix start. Row 11 will be Gianni Morbidelli of Italy in the footwork and Mika Salo of Finland in the Lotus, who finished 10th a week ago in Japan. Row 12 will be Hideki Noda of Japan in the Larousse, next to the home crowd favorite from Australia, David Brabham in the Simtek Ford. On row 13, the first Swiss in Formula One since Marc Surer in 1986, Jean-Denis Delatraz in the Larousse, next to Mimmo Schiaparella of Italy, who returns to the Simtek Ford team for his second Grand Prix race. Those who failed to qualify, the Pacific team of Paul Belmondo and fellow Frenchman Bertrand Gachot, who can take some comfort in the fact that next year it has been announced their budget will triple to $15 million, and hopefully they'll have a better shot at qualifying then. Derek Daly, as the cars pull off, a closer look at the racing circuit.
This track here is unusually wide for a street racing circuit. As you pass the start-finish line, the first chicane is now called the Senna chicane. It's very fast, that's where Schumacher crashed. Down through Wakefield, Flinders and East Terrace, all very bumpy city streets. Down to Stag and then the blast down through Jones and Brabham Straight. 190 miles an hour here down to the hairpin. Many cars have been up this escape road. From there down to Foster's, where the brakes take another punishing. 2,200 concrete barriers it took to build this circuit, and there are 12 miles of fencing that separates the fans from more than 21,000 horsepower.
The 16th and final round of the 1994 World Championship. A look at some of the oddboard cameras, and there are many of them, with pictures supplied by Channel 9 here in Australia. This is Dequetteville Terrace, the longest straightaway on the circuit, as you look into the eyes of Michael Schumacher through the visor. Here's a look at our post-time weather conditions. Fortunately, very little chance of rain, but it is very humid. Lots of the drivers using drink bottles in their cars. A light breeze and temperature about 66 degrees. Lots of jackets in the grandstand with a capacity crowd on hand of some 75,000 people. A look at the quickest cars in the morning warm-up, the best indication of who is on the pace. With race tires and fuel on board, Nigel Mansell looking very much like a potential winner and thereby perhaps a spoiler in this World Championship. John Alesi almost a half second slow in the warm-up. Michael Schumacher third and Damon Hill sixth. Hill, it must be said, has not been at the top of the chart since the very first practice on Friday morning in the dry. Down to the Foster's hairpin and then the starting grid.
So much at stake here, Bob. McLaren may go winless. They have one more opportunity to try and win. But the World Championship battle with this man were on board, Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Perhaps Michael Schumacher said it best in a bit of fractured English. This is the race in which you will decide the world champion. More, I think, there's not to say. After all of the tragedy, after all of the drama, all of the politics, the arguing, it has come down to this. 2 men, 1 point for the World Driving Championship.
Mansell has yet to make a good start in Formula One.
His third race. Make that Mansell's 4th race in his return to Formula One. He's been practicing his starts this weekend. He says they are better. Mika Hakkinen has been making great starts this year. Final race of the season. And a very quick but tight chicane ahead. Schumacher to the first corner first. The yellow helmet of Christian Fittipaldi goes bounding over the curbs, but this race is about Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. And at this point, Schumacher takes the lead with Hill second, Mansell third, and Mansell is off and on.
And Johnny Herbert has had a banging and bashing session back there with Martin Brundle in the second McLaren. Almost hit the wall on that opening lap. Look at Berger down the inside.
A short rise on that street, then a series of 90-degree corners, then this chicane onto the Alan Jones Straight, Rundle Road. And then to Kettville Terrace, the Brabham Straight, and Michael Schumacher begins to draw away from Damon Hill with Mika Hakkinen in third. Then the Jordan, Nigel Mansell tucks in fifth with one of the Ferraris right behind him.
So Barrichello also took advantage of Mansell's problems up on the curb. Barrichello running fourth for Jordan. But what a dream start for Michael Schumacher from the second row of the grid.
Everybody in the field on D compound Goodyear tires, the softest compound made. First time we've seen that compound since the San Marino Grand Prix in May, but a different construction. Let's take another look now at the start.
Correction, that's the first row of the grid, Michael Schumacher, second position on that grid. Watch the lights change here. Control the wheel spin. Look at Mansell, too much wheel spin, leaving the line. And there goes Michael Schumacher, immediately down the inside. Senna chicane. Watch Johnny Herbert. There goes Fittipaldi.
Despite all that banging, I can't recall the last time a field of 26 Grand Prix cars made it through that first chicane in good shape. Now replays from Australian television from high overhead. Schumacher and Hill now beginning to draw away from Mika Hakkinen. And now the Jordan of Rubens Barrichello comes under fire from Nigel Mansell, who snakes down the inside of the hairpin. A counterattack from the Jordan, and Barrichello is back into third.
Whoa. Mansell was made to work so hard because Rubens Barrichello blocked that inside line. Mansell came anyway, ran out of room, ran wide, and Rubens Barrichello took the position back.
Jean Alesi in that sixth and final points paying position, trying to get his season back on track in this final event of the year. Flashing down the start, finish straight away into this chicane, renamed for the late Ayrton Senna this weekend.
Bumpy streets, uphill, second gear. 90-degree left. He's quicker on the straight. It's a Stag. No, this is Stag.
Named for a hotel of that name on that street corner.
Very difficult corner here. Look at the curbs. Oh, on the outside in particular.
Schumacher under braking. Got a little bit squirrely there. Damon Hill, this will not do for Damon Hill. He has to get ahead of Michael Schumacher. Flashing back into the Victoria Park horse racing circuit, developed since last August into a racing circuit. This happens every August here in Adelaide, Australia. It will happen one more year next year before the Australian Grand Prix will move to Albert Park in Melbourne. According to the schedule makers, Bernie Ecclestone, the Formula One Supremo, visited Melbourne on his way here to Adelaide, and he was met with death threats, supposedly from eco-terrorists who don't want Albert Park to be used for a motor race.
Damon Hill was over a second slower than Mansell in the warm-up this morning. Said the car felt well balanced, but the times just didn't seem to be there. Inside with Damon Hill. Alan Jones Straight, of course named for their past world champion, also drove a Williams. Up on the curb, doesn't touch them. And 195 miles an hour in qualifying down this long straight to a second gear hairpin. 35 miles an hour. Jump on the brakes.
Very slow corner, and then hard to get on the power when you've got nearly 800 horses behind your neck. Back into the park. Quick left-hand flick, and then a long series of rights, then hard on the brakes over the skid marks. These are workaday streets here in Adelaide. As a result, the track has a tendency to rubber in, as the drivers say. It will get quicker throughout the course of the day as the rubber builds up. Flashing back out onto Wakefield Street. And this left onto Flinders Street. And then a right-hander onto Peary, named for Gordon Peary, former world 1 mile record holder from Australia. Quick chicane past the Stag Hotel and a right turn onto the Jones Straight.
So busy on street racing circuits. Look at Schumacher, looks in the left mirror to see where Damon Hill is.
Listen to those brakes whistle.
On the down changes, leans into the corner in the blast. Well balanced racing car, particularly on street circuits, this V8 Ford engine Benetton.
We'll take a quick timeout and return for more of the final round of the 1994 World Championship. Schumacher or Hill will be the titleist. Welcome back to Australia. Bob Varsha and Derek Daly, glad to have you with us for the championship decider in the 1994 Formula One World Driving Championship. There is Damon Hill, 32-year-old son of the former two-time world champion Graham Hill, hoping to follow in his father's footsteps this weekend here in Australia and match his feat of clinching a world championship in the very last race of the season. Graham did it twice in 1962 and 1968. There's Michael Schumacher. That is the gap for the world title.
And there's two separate races going on here because incredibly, after only 6 or 7 laps, these cars are so far ahead of the rest of the field, you can't even see another car. At the end of the long Brabham Straight, when we look back, you couldn't even see another car. So they are so far ahead of everybody else. This is the way the World Championship should be decided. That is the start of everybody else. Mika Häkkinen running third.
Question is still alive. Who will partner Häkkinen in the McLaren Mercedes project next year? Rubens Barrichello in 4th place leads Nigel Mansell. That position has switched once at the hairpin at the end of the Brabham Straight. Under braking, Nigel got by, but Barrichello snatched it back on the exit.
That's the Jordan with the Hart V10. How long can we stay in here with Mansell? Because that's the Renault V10, supposed to be the most powerful engine in Formula One. Oh, he doesn't gather them up that quick.
Doesn't seem to be a whole lot to choose between the two power plants there. Of course, the question is how much downforce is everybody running here? Normally, you'd load on as much as you can to get grip. And if you have a powerful engine, you can add that much more downforce.
Violent cars to be inside. A hostile environment a Formula One cockpit is. Bumps, shakes, shocks, engines, G-forces, everything just crashes and bangs inside the cockpit all the way through the driver's back, neck, spine, legs, arms, everything.
As that onboard camera cleared, it looked like droplets of water. I wonder where that's coming from. Once again, you see them. Either Barrichello's car is spitting water, or we may have a precipitation problem once again here in Adelaide. It rains a lot here.
Look at the moisture on the rear view mirror of Mansell's car. That's coming from somewhere. It is such hard work to be on these street circuits. You can clearly see that Mansell lost a lot of time on that lap to Barrichello. He was in a challenging position the last lap, certainly not now.
And the red Ferrari of Jean Alesi closes up. Alesi perhaps hoping to return the favor as Nigel was all over his mirrors a week ago in the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka.
Lots of changes to the Ferrari yesterday. He was second fastest in the wet. Said he'd rather have it wet for the race. In fact, the only other man who said he'd prefer it wet, believe it or not, was Michael Schumacher, who was very confident with the handling of his Benetton in the wet.
I mentioned that this race has one more year to run here in Adelaide before moving on to Melbourne. And the Formula One fraternity is saddened by that. Almost to a man, everyone you ask will tell you this is their favorite race of the year. The Australians welcome everyone with open arms and put on a tremendous show. There were no fewer than 6 support races for this event, and there's never a moment when there's not something going on to entertain people, including 25 parachute drops over 3 days, air shows, wheelchair races, you name it. It's been going on here. Now Damon Hill lights up the right front under braking.
And a totally different line under braking than Michael Schumacher. Didn't come down on the outside and turn to the apex, came down a full car length, or maybe 1.5 car widths to the inside. This is Foster's hairpin.
2 years ago, Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell had a very controversial coming together. As Senna punted Mansell off, afterwards Mansell said, "I'm out of here. I'm going IndyCar racing." Well, a lot has changed since then. Nigel Mansell is back in Formula One. And now Michael Schumacher begins to lap slower traffic. That's one of the LaRousse Fords.
So Delatrez, early in his Formula One career, gets to see what the real big boys are like in race conditions. Absolutely smoked by him. 10 laps into the race, and he's already lapped. That means the rate he's running now, he'll be 8 laps down at the end of this event.
Among the questions yet to be answered, pit strategy. Very soft tires on a very, very low abrasion circuit. The question is how many times they'll stop, how much fuel they are carrying. In the past, Benetton has gotten the better of the Williams team in that category, usually running a very light fuel load for Michael Schumacher and bringing him in at least twice, sometimes 3 times during the course of the race, and relying on his skill and quickness on his in and out laps to make the difference on the racetrack.
On board with the screaming Ferrari, Jean Alesi. That V12 screams so much. It's a joy to listen to. But this is a raging battle here with Barrichello still in that Jordan with the Hart V10 able to hold off the multi-million-dollar engine packages of Renault V10 and Ferrari.
The Ferrari engine, 12 cylinders, not known for its low-end torque. So Jean Alesi doing well to stay in the hunt here. The Ferrari's not likely to be running much downforce this weekend. We'll take a quick timeout. We won't let you miss anything. Stand by for more of the most dramatic race of the year in Formula One, the title clincher. 1st of May this year, in which perhaps the greatest racing driver in Formula One history was killed in a racing accident. Back in Adelaide, Australia, Bob Barsha, Derek Daly with you. You ride along with Damon Hill in his pursuit of Michael Schumacher, who leads him by 1 place on the racetrack, 1st to 2nd, and 1 point in the run for the World Driving Championship. Senna's death at Imola, Italy back in May is very much in the news this weekend. The Italian government may be preparing charges against the Williams team. They have legal representation, and there is some dispute over the cause of Senna's crash. Word from Italy is that they are blaming steering failure, but Senna's family and no doubt the Williams team dispute that. And the sad story continues. It has been learned that on the fateful day, when Senna was removed from the race car, they found an Austrian flag that he had taken on board in anticipation of waving on the cool-down lap of the San Marino Grand Prix in honor of Roland Ratzenberger, who died in a crash the previous day. To the matter at hand, on to Wakefield. Whoa, someone going straight off. The tire barriers ahead for Mark Blundell, but he keeps it off the wall.
Whoa, not often on a street circuit you have that amount of runoff to try and lose the speed when you go out of control, but Blundell absolutely flew by the camera position and stopped like a go-kart and got himself back on the racetrack. See Damon Hill, one of those drivers with a drink bottle. You can see that from the in-car camera, from the face cam. Here it is again, Blundell under braking, gets his outside wheels on the curb. That's what loses him the grip. And luckily, he goes all the way. What was that, 30 yards sideways? Did he keep it running? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. These two guys are absolutely flying here. They are more than 10 seconds ahead of the 3rd place chase being led by Mika Hakkinen. Herbert is in, first of the pit stop. Johnny Herbert doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
Taking way too long. And now they push him back.
So now the Constructors' Championship fight is left up to Schumacher all by himself. He's man enough to carry the load. When you have someone like a Nigel Mansell supporting Williams, it's going to be virtually impossible to win the Constructors' title.
Down in the hairpin. Lots of passing going on. Keep in mind the Constructors' title is also at stake this weekend. Williams-Renault, the two-time defending world champions, come in with a 5-point lead. Nigel Mansell, you'll see, has gotten around the Jordan of Rubens Barrichello, and that makes Johnny Herbert dropping out of this race significant in that Benetton now has half the effort on the racetrack. 2 Williams cars are circulating versus 1 Benetton in the battle for the Constructors' Championship. 15 laps in, Schumacher, Hill, Hakkinen, Mansell over Barrichello, and Jean Alesi in the Ferrari hanging on in 6th. 10 points for the victory, 6 for second, 4 for third, then 3, 2, and 1. Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork pit. There's rumors Christian Fittipaldi is still talking to IndyCar teams.
And talking to many Formula One teams. Peter Sauber was on his list earlier this weekend, had an interview with him. Of course, Sauber not prepared to make a decision on their second driver till Wendlinger says yes or no.
Look just below the mirror and you see one of the turning vanes on board the Ferrari. Just one of the efforts made by Formula One teams to recapture downforce taken away by the governing body earlier this year. Here's Derek Daly with a closer look at how Ferrari manages its aerodynamics.
Changes have been the order of the day in Formula One this year. Now, to slow these Formula One cars down, the FIA want to take away some downforce. So just before the Spanish Grand Prix, they introduced a rule that said this here is now a no-go area. You cannot have any aerodynamic devices in here. Therefore, you had to chop off the back of the very big front wings and take away the turning vanes, and that all helped reduce some downforce. But what did that do? It created very turbulent air all around this section here of the cars. Now, turbulent air does not create any downforce. So, Ferrari have gone to a turning vane or deflector system that was actually originally pioneered by McLaren back in South Africa last year. Now, this is by far the most radical air management system in Formula One because everybody does have these. But look what it does. It channels and guides the air down the side of the car, then in through here. Clean air goes through the radiator, and the rest, which is now cleaned up, goes down the side of the car and underneath. What's the effects of this air management? Well, it increases the downforce of the car overall by as much as 8%. More downforce means more speed.
As Alesi comes into the pit lane, of course, what they have found is the more downforce they bolt onto this car, the harder it becomes to manage. So they have the downforce, but they don't seem to be able to get the downforce to work with the mechanical grip this car has. Therefore, they seem to struggle. Look at that, 6.4. That may be the quickest that we have seen this year. Of course, it all depends on how much fuel he has taken on board.
Fuel determined, and he's got cold tires despite those $10,000 a set electric tire blankets that warm them in the pits. Now you ride with Schumacher. His first stop can't be far away. Now, moments ago, Eddie Irvine spun himself out of the race. Schumacher pits. Schumacher pits. We're going to want to watch this. And Damon Hill is just behind him.
Oh, this could be good. This is when you turn the race over to the men in the pit lane. There they are. All 22.
Fuel hose goes in. Very quick, it looks like, for Benetton. Oh, Michael Schumacher's down and away. And Damon Hill just rolls now. So they, I would guess, leave the pits with just about the gap they came in. Call that a draw.
Whoa, it shows you how close this fight is going to be. On the racetrack, it was almost dead even. The advantage going to Schumacher because of that really good start. Now in the pit lane, each crew member does his job exactly as called for.
Let's get back to Eddie Irvine for just a moment and get a look at just how slippery this racetrack can be. Up on the curbs, behind him, Martin Brundle locks him up, but by then Eddie Irvine is off and gone.
There was something else, though, that caused Eddie Irvine to get himself into trouble. Obviously, that Hart V10 looks as if it ventilated itself a little bit, because you don't see that much smoke coming through the airbox just for a simple spin.
Well, it appears Eddie Irvine's 1994 is now finished. Whoa, and the McLaren right up there on that curve. Well and truly up on the curb is Mika Hakkinen. Nigel Mansell closes in. Down the inside in the hairpin, there's a little bit of smoke off the Goodyears, and Hakkinen will do to Mansell what Barrichello did in the early laps of the race.
And Mansell is so brave on that move down the inside. He forces the issue all the way down and runs out of room consistently, and Hakkinen just ducks down inside and takes the place back. But the bravery of Mansell, who has been so impressive here this weekend, showing again, driving just like he did in the past.
This is a bit of a home race for Mansell. His sister and her family live here in Adelaide. Frank Williams said Nigel was going to have to earn a place back in the team as you take another look.
Now he can't make the turn. See this? He can't go to the apex. Runs wide. Mika Hakkinen simply hangs back, turns the car to the apex, and jumps on the power.
I think Frank Williams basically wanted three things from Nigel. He has to show he could qualify well, he had to show he could race well, and he had to show he could sell cars for Renault, who build the engines for their team. Well, Nigel Mansell was mobbed when he arrived in Australia for this race, so his popularity remains undiminished. He proved a week ago in Japan that he could race as he went toe-to-toe with Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, and he's proven this weekend, I would say, that he can qualify.
And that may be worth $15 million a year. Hard to believe it.
Damon Hill came here and complained that he was underpaid. Imagine what he's going to think if Nigel gets 15 times the salary next year.
Look at these two here, locked in battle. You can throw a blanket over the two of them. This is the way it should be.
We'll step away for just a moment and be right back with more of the Grand Prix of Australia, final round of the 1994 campaign. Stay with us. Approaching the LaRousse race leader and world championship leader Michael Schumacher leads away from this man, Damon Hill. Now, coming up tonight on ESPN at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Sunday Night Football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers into the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan to face Barry Sanders and the Detroit Lions. Don't miss the action tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern here on ESPN. There is the running order. Schumacher, Hill, Mansell now in third, Mika Hakkinen fourth, Rubens Barrichello fifth, followed by Martin Brundle as the pit stops continue here in Adelaide.
And Damon Hill almost threw the whole thing away there. Watch what happens here. Oh, look at this. Scott Arella gets in trouble in the second of the Simtek cars. A harmless 360 got on the curb, but Damon Hill, when he went to pass the traffic, after he got by the LaRousse of Delatrez, just bounded over the top of the curb, coming onto the long back straight, managed to keep it straight, but lost about 7 car lengths to Schumacher.
Listen to the engine note, and you can tell why the drivers call this a point and squirt circuit.
Here's the problem for the race leader. You have to make sure the car you're lapping sees you. You have to know, you have to sense that he sees you. Damon Hill is the fastest man on the racetrack here, because even though he dropped back 6 or 7 car lengths, he has come all the way back up to Schumacher again in the space of 1 lap.
About to lap Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell, shown in 16th place. Blundell obviously sees him now. The question is, does he see the man behind him? Damon Hill obviously does, and away they go. The running order is Schumacher, Hill, Mansell. Jean Alesi goes around in the Ferrari. Keeps it fired. No runoff here, but plenty of dirty tire underfoot. And now Damon Hill closes right up on Michael Schumacher in traffic. Schumacher, Hill, Mansell, Barrichello, Hakkinen, Berger, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 7th, and Olivier Penny, Jean Alesi, and Ukio Katayama in 10th. Then Michele Alboreto doing a good job in 11th for Minardi, Sandro Zanardi in 12th, Pierluigi Martini, Christian Fittipaldi, Mika Salo 15th, Mark Blundell 16th, Frank Lagore 17th, followed by David Brabham and J.J. Leto. So
it's all on the line here. Damon Hill has to win. He has to get by Schumacher. Doesn't have to win, but he has to get by and finish ahead of Schumacher. We can only presume that they took on a similar load of fuel as Schumacher puts his hand up to wipe his visor. We can only presume they took a similar load of fuel on board at the last pit stop because it was about equal. But it certainly seems to me that Damon Hill is just a touch quicker on this second set of tires than Michael Schumacher.
They see the gaps among the battles going on behind our race leaders. And it's hard to blame Australian television for staying with this one because this is the championship. A victory would do it for Damon Hill. 1 point separates four of the six positions in the Formula One point structure. And should they tie, Michael Schumacher will take the World Championship on the basis of greater number of victories. So Damon Hill needs to get ahead of Schumacher, and he needs help. A comparison of the pit stops. This is from entering the pit lane to exiting. As you can see, half a second separating Schumacher from Hill. Basically a wash on that effort, but there is at least one, perhaps two more pit stops to come.
So they pitted on the same lap as Brundle takes the first of the McLarens in.
Last race for the McLaren Peugeot team. And perhaps Martin Brundle's last effort with this team. Although Heinz-Harald Frentzen having confirmed for Sauber next year, that makes life easier for Martin Brundle. He was one of the men on the short list for team manager Ron Dennis, along with David Coulthard, the third driver for the Williams team. Rocketing around the portion of the circuit built in the Victoria Park Hippodrome. Across the start-finish line. Directly ahead of Michael Schumacher is Christian Fittipaldi. And then one of the Minardis, I believe that's Pierluigi Martini just ahead.
And notice what's going on here when they come up to past the lap traffic. Everybody is so desperate to move away from the World Championship battle, they literally drive the cars almost off the racetrack, and Mansell finally comes in and makes a pit stop in the second of the Williams cars.
We apologize for the breakup. Nigel Mansell clicks the visor up. Up to about 15,000 revs, drop the clutch, and away we go.
Not a great stop, so he obviously started with more fuel, and he has taken on more fuel than Damon Hill if he stopped that length of time. So a different strategy's been played out here. Look at this. That was Damon Hill up under the wing and the gearbox of Michael Schumacher. Whoa!
Nigel Mansell's pole for this race, the 32nd of his career, putting him within one of the tie between Alain Prost and the late Jim Clark for second on the all-time list with 33. Of course, the late Ayrton Senna, the all-time leader in poles with 65. Despite the fact that Michael Schumacher leads and the fact that he has basically dominated the season of Formula One, you get the feeling that Damon Hill is the man in control of this race.
Certainly at the moment, he seems to have the car under him that allows him to make a challenge on Schumacher. If he doesn't get it done, he seems to be able to catch up whatever time he loses. So clearly, he seems to be in a faster car. But track position is enjoyed by Schumacher, and track position on a street circuit is a huge advantage. As one of the Lotus cars gets blown away, that's Zanardi.
Sandro Zanardi, who had that huge crash at Spa in Belgium a year ago. Down the Brabham straightaway, then hard on the brakes for this second gear corner. Perhaps a first gear corner, very slow, less than 40 miles an hour.
So far, this means nothing. You get no points in Formula One for leading. You get no points for leading at any stage during the race. It's only when the checkered flag comes out that they begin to divvy up the points and the bonuses. So up to now, all it is entertainment for us. Mika Hakkinen and Barrichello have yet to pit, so they've obviously gone on a long fuel load to start the race.
Which brings up a good point. In addition to the battle for the World Championship up front, there are lots of positions in the points at stake 15 places from 10th to 25th could change hands here, as well as Mika Hakkinen in 4th and Rubens Barrichello in 6th. They are very much vulnerable this weekend. We'll take a quick timeout and be back for more of the Grand Prix of Australia as the pit stops continue. Hakkinen is in. Stay with us. In the Venice of the Antipodes, Bob Varsha, Derek Daly, glad to have you with us. Nigel Mansell rockets around in 4th place after a rush of pit stops. The running order is Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, but with a pit stop due, Nigel Mansell, Jean Alesi, Mika Hakkinen, Rubens Barrichello, Martin Brundle, Olivier Penny, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Sandro Zanardi, and Christian Fittipaldi.
And John Alesi grabbed 2 of those positions in a kamikaze move that started here. That's Barrichello and the Jordan over the curb to the outside. Hakkinen takes advantage, but watch what happens here. Watch Alesi's Ferrari. There he goes, past Barrichello, down the inside of Mika Hakkinen. Kamikaze move that he manages to pull off. And Alesi in the Ferrari goes all the way from 7th up to 5th.
There you see the gap from Alesi forward to Nigel Mansell. Now, a Sauber blocking the way of the race leader, Michael Schumacher. That's Heinz-Harald Frentzen just ahead.
Needs to give him room here, needs to give him room. And he does. Barely.
Back up through the gearbox. The cars really only use 6th gear on that long Dequetteville Terrace straightaway, the Brabham Straight. Most of the time they're going up and down the gearbox, shifting that right foot between brake and accelerator, assuming they're not left foot braking, of course.
And that is the other Brabham Straight in front of Schumacher. David Brabham, crowd favorite here in the Simtek. For a very short period this morning, he was the fastest man in the warm-up. Didn't last long, it was only the first 3 or 4 minutes. But Simtek backed for these last 2 races by Korean Air. Simtek, one of the smaller Formula One teams, doing a good job on a very small budget here, but Nick Worth says that team is getting bigger and better and learning so much every race weekend. All they need is a decent test program. Believe it or not, they still use the old original wire valve Ford HB engines, which may be as much as 70 or 80 horsepower less than the engine in the back of Michael Schumacher's.
And the cars have been heavy this year as well, hampering their efforts. Getting these cars down to the minimum weight is a science in itself. Damon Hill goes by David Brabham.
Very few technical innovations this late in the season, mainly because on the trip to Japan, you just didn't have any time. Remember, it was raining at the end of the Japanese Grand Prix where the mechanics hardly had time to dry the machinery off and pack everything away. With the result is lots of rain and moisture got packed in the boxes. By the time everything arrived here, everything was rusty, so they spent most of the time cleaning these cars before they could put them on the racetrack. Berger, who still runs 3rd, now lapping one of the Minardis. Berger obviously taking one of these heavy fuel loads. 1 pit stop, another heavy fuel load. The man who supposedly invented the engine problem in Japan.
Berger went into a press conference here in Adelaide, and as he was coming in, he noticed several Italian journalists leaving. He said, no, you come in and you wait. I want to talk to you. As Berger pits his Ferrari, listen to that rattle as it hits the rev limiter in the pit lane to keep it to that 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Berger then launched into a tirade against the Italian journalist, said, you think I'm making this up? I don't need an excuse. If I think it's too dangerous to race, I'll stop, I'll get out, I'll tell you I quit. I don't need to make up excuses.
7.4 seconds, so that drops him behind Nigel Mansell. Mansell was behind him in 4th place. Now he's ahead of him on the racetrack. Mansell made, of course, 1 stop, and there's Berger. And there's Alesi.
Gerhard Berger has been very outspoken when it comes to safety issues this year, and earlier this season, we asked him for his views on what's coming.
Future in cars, for me, can be just one thing. That's to develop an airbag and to work with an airbag.
all this rubbish, slow down the car and saying, yeah, we have to control them, not to get out of control, but reduce 300 horsepower, go to 500 horsepower is completely bull, because you have Formula One. You needed something challenging for us, for the people who was watching, you know. And if you have a car going around the corner and it goes around instead 300 with 280 and it goes with 280 into the wall in a bad angle, you're gonna die. So I think you have, of course, to control the speed and the power, but you have to make the radical changes in the runoff areas and in things like airbag and these things.
Just as Gerhard Berger spoke about cornering problems, Damon Hill came together with Michael Schumacher. Schumacher flew in the air and out of the race, and now Damon Hill has a left on the contact, gets a puncture on that left front tire. He's not out of the championship battle, but here's where it went wrong for Schumacher. He makes a mistake. Look at this. Gets her sideways, big correction, over the curb first. That was what allowed Damon Hill to run down to your World Championship hopes after you clout the wall, then after you almost turn upside down. Damon Hill has made it back. He's got to get up to 5th place. 5th place is all he needs to be world champion. 2 points. Nigel Mansell has one of those positions. He can stop on the last lap. So the odds are with Damon. Oh, the suspension is broken. Steering is broken. It may be slipping away from his hands as we watch. Remember, attrition sorts out these races at the end, but he will not take blame for what happened here. He cannot be blamed for what we saw. Look at the eyes as it all, oh, it's a suspension. There is no recourse. He will have to stop and change that left front suspension. There is no way he can continue. Aircraft quality steel does not take a beating like that. That will break the very first time he puts his foot on those carbon fiber brakes. Unless there's a miracle in Australia, it is over for Damon Hill. It's already over for Schumacher. Schumacher's in the wall. He's already gone off the racetrack, clouted the wall. He blocks him here. Now Schumacher blocks him here. He turns right. What's this? Turns to the apex to block him. Damon Hill's already there, locks the wheels, turns Schumacher upside down, and look at the front wishbone brake. There is nothing you can do except change the wishbone. I don't think there's enough time. Of course, Schumacher has no idea that Damon Hill is stationary in the pits with potentially no hope to contest the battle. Let's take another look at it now from Schumacher's perspective. He comes back on the racetrack. Watch the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Well, you'll see right here as Hill dives for the corner. Schumacher comes across. They touch wheels, and the combination of clouting Schumacher and the curb at the same time was more than Damon Hill's suspension could handle. Meanwhile, his teammate Nigel Mansell is out there. Keep in mind that constructor's title is still at stake, and it would appear that it will go to Williams-Renault. Michael Schumacher is out, Johnny Herbert is out, Benetton has no more cars in this Australian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell now leads Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi, Mika Hakkinen, Rubens Barrichello, and Martin Brundle, but the story is in the pit. The World Championship is over. Michael Schumacher is world champion. Damon Hill, what a challenge he put up, and now the boys celebrate. And Schumacher doesn't even realize it. I think you're right. I don't think he knows. As the World Feed graphic declares Michael Schumacher. Now here comes a corner worker. Oh, I wish we could have stayed with that shot. Damon Hill's situation breaks the heart, but Michael Schumacher is about to learn that he's world champion. Both cars are out. Remember, Benetton have no more work to do today. It's all over. Herbert was out earlier. Now Schumacher is in the wall. And Mansell is left as the star on the stage, and Damon Hill is left to ponder what might have been, because if he didn't make contact with Schumacher, Schumacher probably had already damaged his car enough to put him out of contention. What might have been, I think he may already know. He does, he knows. Michael Schumacher knows he is the 1994 Formula One World Champion. Well, spare a thought for this man. The first, second generation Formula One race winner, Dave Brown. His engineer comes over to console him.
I'll tell you what, Damon Hill took a good fight to Michael Schumacher. I think he did a superb job. In car from Damon Hill. Schumacher's already in the wall. May already have destroyed his car. Watch the left front wheel of Damon Hill and the top wishbone. Locks the wheel. There's the contact with Schumacher's car. That's what breaks the wishbone. That's what costs him a chance to become the world champion.
Jean Alesi makes his second pit stop. Whoops. And he stalls it.
Now we have a whole new race. We have a whole new race that Jean Alesi was in a challenging position. He was on a rostrum position as he went into that pit stop. Now it begins to slip away from him. What might have been.
Well, with that, the World Championship is decided, but as Derek mentioned, it is a whole new race and one worthy of watching, as there is very much at stake for the competitors still in the running. There will be other days, other Grands Prix, and perhaps a World Championship in Damon Hill's future. But here is the man of the hour. Michael Schumacher is out of the race, but he is the 1994 World Champion. Spring day in Adelaide, Australia, with Christmas approaching. That's right, down here in the southern hemisphere, it is springtime. Adelaide, a city of 1 million people, the capital of South Australia. There is Mika Hakkinen in his McLaren Peugeot into the Foster's hairpin and onto the start-finish straightaway, built on a horse racing circuit here in Victoria Park. Hakkinen runs in third place behind race leader Nigel Mansell in his 8th visit to this Grand Prix of Australia. Is in position to take perhaps his first victory. Gerhard Berger runs in second in the Ferrari. Behind Mika Hakkinen in third, Rubens Barrichello runs in fourth, then Martin Brundle in the second McLaren Peugeot, and Olivier Panis having a great run in the Ligier Renault.
McLaren winless this year. Next year with the Mercedes engine, that will be the 4th engine combination in a McLaren in as many years. They went from Honda to Ford to Peugeot, now to Mercedes. And Ron Dennis wants to keep Mika Hakkinen, confidently says he is one of the top 3 drivers in the world at the moment and will definitely win. Look at the carbon smoke on the inside right wheel of the McLaren as he gets under braking, but he says Mika Hakkinen will win Grand Prix races in the McLaren, and he will win it very shortly.
Well, if Mika Hakkinen or Martin Brundle does not win this race, it'll be the first year under Ron Dennis's leadership that McLaren has not won a Grand Prix in a season.
Look what's going on here. Berger, who did not like the Ferrari here for 2 days until the warm-up this morning, when he said suddenly the balance began to come much, much better. Now beginning to reel in Nigel Mansell. Both of these cars have only made 1 pit stop. So Mansell being caught by Berger. It was 3.8 seconds only 2 laps earlier. Then it came down to low 3s. Now it's high 2s. The last time they were past the start-finish line. Now you can see it's, I would say, just about a second.
Berger, a 2-time winner of this race in 1987 and 1992. The first time in a Ferrari, the second in a McLaren. Now he goes around Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork. Look at the cars out of the race. Most recently, Sandro Zanardi, Michael Schumacher, and Damon Hill went out together after 35 laps, deciding the World Championship in favor of the German, who becomes the first of his nationality to win the world driving title in the modern era since Formula One was created for the 1950 season. Hard to imagine with all the great German drivers over the years that Schumacher is their first world titleist.
That's Delatraz in the LaRousse. Just ahead of Berger. He needs to move over, let the Ferrari through, and he doesn't do it, turns down. Already carries a 10-second penalty, I presume, for a pit violation earlier. So much work done to this Ferrari.
Of 81 laps scheduled, we have 35 remaining.
A John Barnard design that was redesigned aerodynamically by Gustav Brunner. They've had new engines in this. They're fast, but they're not as consistent as they need to be World Championship challengers. But John Barnard's all-new design, which shall have all the bells and whistles, will be out for next season.
Berger has won this race twice, as has the late Ayrton Senna. Nelson Piquet won it back in 1990. Terry Boutsen in 1989 wound up the decade of the 80s by winning for Williams as they won the very first Grand Prix of the 80s in the hands of Australian Alan Jones. Alain Prost won it twice for McLaren, and Keke Rosberg won the very first Australian Grand Prix here in Adelaide back in 1985 in a Williams. Right now, a Williams leads. Nigel Mansell has never won this race, but he's leading it right now. We'll take a quick time out and be back for more of the Grand Prix of Australia here on ESPN. Stay with us. Inside the Benetton garage, the race may be going on outside, and both of their cars may be out of the race, but the celebration has begun for Michael Schumacher, the 1994 Formula One World Driving Champion.
And that was Pat Simmons, his race engineer, who got hoisted above there by Michael Schumacher. He got a ride back on the back of an Australian moped as Barrichello takes the Jordan for what may be his last pit stop. Barrichello running in 4th place behind Mika Hakkinen, and he was ahead of Olivier Panis in the Ligier.
Back out onto the racetrack comes Ruben Barrichello, the youngest man in Formula One, through the Senna chicane.
Still not confirmed. This is on board with Barrichello. This camera is on the outside of his front wing. See it just sticking out the outside of the right front wing. He is not yet confirmed as Eddie Jordan's lead driver for next year. Believe it or not, Ron Dennis said he is still one of the possibilities to drive with McLaren, along with David Coulthard.
I would imagine the boys over in the Jordan pit are watching the progress of those McLaren Peugeots very carefully. Both cars in the race and running well. Mika Hakkinen and Martin Brundle. Hakkinen running 3rd, Brundle just outside of the points. He may have moved up as a result of that pit stop there by Rubens Barrichello. We'll have to check that. Nevertheless, the Peugeot engines have made enormous strides this year, and Eddie Jordan is more than happy to bolt them into the back of his 1995 chassis.
And have a heart for Brian Hart, who developed his own V10 engine with less than $5 million. And his drivers have been on the 2nd row of the grid. He's been on the pole. He's been on the rostrum. And with that amount of money, I think that's a very good job for Brian Hart. Believe it or not, Peugeot were originally thinking of rebadging the Brian Hart as to be the original Peugeot V10 Formula One engine. Where will they go next year? We don't know, but strong rumor up and down the pit lane is they may end up in the back of the Footwork cars, or the Arrows cars, as they may be officially known as next year.
$5 million is a lot when you're buying baseball cards, but it doesn't go very far when you're developing these high-tech Formula One engines. Next year they'll go from 3.5 liters of displacement to 3 liters, and they will rev higher and make more noise than ever before. Will they lose horsepower? The consensus seems to be yes, about 80 horsepower perhaps. Look at Nigel, his last victory in Portugal in 1992. Of course, that was his last year in Formula One, winning the World Championship before moving on to IndyCars, where he won that title. And after a rough year this year with the Newman Haas team, Nigel is knocking on the door of Formula One once again.
A little twitch there as Martin Brundle brings the 2nd of the McLarens in, running in 4th place.
He was running in the points after all.
So much bad luck for Martin Brundle this year. How many times have we seen him in good points-paying positions, and then we see the ominous blue smoke out the back, and sometimes 15 feet of flame. The engine has never blown up in the Peugeot, though. But Martin Brundle has had to stop within sight of World Championship points.
Something laid an awful layer of oil on the Brabham Straight on Saturday in Australia. Mika Hakkinen might have something to say about about whether something let go in the engine department or not. Getting back to Martin Brundle's sour luck over the years, the truism is it's better to be lucky than good. When you're hiring a racing driver, if you have two guys of roughly equal ability, you take a lucky guy over the other?
You have to go with statistics. Statistics and history are the only thing that doesn't tell lies. And when you're man of the moment and you're hot, away you go. Look at Johnny Herbert, how his career may survive the traumas of Team Lotus because he was on a downer. In fact, contemplated retiring from Formula One at one stage. Now his career may be revived through sheer good luck of being in the right place at the right time to jump into that second Benetton. He, of course, is hopeful that he'll stay in that second Benetton for next year.
Watch the suspension working on the McLaren. The Jones Straight, nearly 3 Gs experienced by the driver right there through that corner onto the Brabham straightaway up to 190 miles an hour.
You can just see Hakkinen use the button on the left side of a steering wheel here. Mansell takes it into the pits. That button on the McLaren is for that automatic down change. Automatically selects lower gears in the gearbox when he uses that button. Mansell comes in.
Not as much pressure on this pit stop, what with both Benettons and the other Williams out of this race. And 8.7 seconds shows it. Plenty of time to get fuel in the car, but while Nigel was stopped, Gerhard Berger went by, and now a Ferrari leads, but Gerhard Berger almost certainly has another pit stop to come. Mika Hakkinen pits the McLaren from 3rd spot.
Good stop for Hakkinen. Very good stop for Hakkinen. Much quicker than Mansell. So Berger now leads, and Barrichello will be 3rd on the road.
We have another pit stop in our future. We'll be back for more of the final round of the Formula One World Driving Championship from Adelaide. Australia, Bob Varsha, Derek Daly with you. Race leader Gerhard Berger pits the Ferrari here at Chatter.
He had 19 seconds of a lead on Nigel Mansell. This better be good.
7 seconds, pretty good. I don't know if it'll be enough.
Now watch the picture now for Mansell. Here it comes. Oh, Berger's going to lead this.
But Nigel has a full head of steam. Here he comes.
Now we have a fight on our hands, boys.
Gerhard Berger should have the fuel and tires to go the distance. And it'll be a straight fight between old rivals.
What a surprise this is. After practice and qualifying on Friday and Saturday, to have the Ferrari come good this morning in the morning warm-up. Alesi, remember, was 2nd fastest. Said the car was much better, but this will be a battle here. Mansell has warmer tires and a lighter fuel load at this moment than Gerhard Berger. Great overhead shot, but he's not close enough here.
A capacity crowd on hand. You better believe there's going to be a party tonight here in Adelaide. Police estimate 80,000 people each night in the streets as Mansell looks down the inside of Berger, but he can't get it done.
Whoa, that was the brave move that Nigel didn't quite pull off twice earlier. I thought he might get his wings clipped. That left front wing was awful close to Berger's right rear tire there. Boy, this is close. Look at this here. He decides to back out at the last moment as Berger turns for the apex. Otherwise, there would have been a collision there.
Into the Senna chicane. They still have trouble putting those two words together. Senna, one of the most outspoken critics of chicanes used to slow the cars. And yet now, after his tragic passing, they're naming chicanes for him all over the world. Oh, Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan makes his last pit stop.
This is a penalty, 10-second penalty, which was assessed after speeding in the pit lane on his last stop. Talk about frustration.
Barrichello brought in from 4th place in the running order. around for Mika Hakkinen, who was running behind him.
Actually, Martin Brundle was the McLaren that was behind him. Mika Hakkinen had maintained that third place right after his pit stop, but Brundle definitely will close up now, and Olivier Panis is right in the thick of things. He's been in the top 6 for the last 15 laps or so, but look at Berger here now beginning to stretch his legs over Nigel Mansell.
And now Mika Hakkinen assessed a penalty. I thought he left a bit quickly from that last pit stop. That is unofficially the 4th 10-second penalty assessed for excessive pit lane speed here in Adelaide.
I hope that radar gun is reading properly, because we can hear these cars and drivers with their fingers on the rev limiter cutout switch that they use to modulate the speed down the pit lane. They're on it. We heard Hakkinen on it, and yet they still get 10-second penalties. So I hope that radar gun isn't suspect, or whoever's standing there using it.
Might be a make-good for that incredible pit stop he had at the Grand Prix of Europe in Jerez, Spain a month or so ago. Seems like forever. Now here comes Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, pitting from 6th place. Both Ferraris running well here today in Adelaide. Oh, this will be a long stop.
They injected water, I believe, into that car. That's the only other thing they can possibly add. That's a pressurized water bottle that they can use, and I suspect that's what it is. Look at it get sideways there under acceleration on these cool tires. Cooler than normal racing temperatures.
Earlier this year, Jean Alesi screamed that he never wanted to drive a Ferrari again after the tremendous disappointment at Monza, where he took his first career Formula One pole, but dropped out of the race at his first pit stop when the car would not engage first gear. And here he is running in Adelaide, and no doubt for a long time to come with Ferrari.
That's the most important corner there, leading onto this back straight, and Berger seems to have the Ferrari well balanced through there, because Mansell cannot make up enough ground. Whoa, down the inside again.
Once again, not enough time for Nigel Mansell. We have to take a commercial break. It is Berger, Mansell, Hakkinen, Brundle, Barrichello, and Panis as the laps begin to dwindle in the final race of the Formula One season. Stand by for more from beautiful Adelaide. Penalty for going too quickly over that 50-mile-an-hour speed limit in the pit lane. You're on board with Nigel Mansell. Ahead, race leader Gerhard Berger of Austria in the Ferrari. Berger looking for his 2nd victory of the year to follow on his win at the Grand Prix of Germany at Hockenheim earlier this year. There's great racing coming your way later today here on ESPN as well. The final stop on the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour. The Hooters 500, 1994 Winston Cup champ Dale Earnhardt. Harry Gant in the final race of his career. Wait till you see the paint job on Harry Gant's car. Greg Sachs is on the pole alongside Kenny Wallace, all coming your way today at 12:40 Eastern Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific. The Hooters 500 Winston Cup race from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Back in Adelaide, you ride with Gerhard Berger in the screaming Ferrari. And the somewhat less screaming, but certainly still loud, Renault V10 of Nigel Mansell.
Whoa! Oh, he's off!
Oh, he's off! Can he get it straight? And where's Nigel? By and gone.
In a blink of an eye, when you make a mistake, you throw the whole thing away. That's what we saw Blundell fly off the road earlier, and Mansell takes advantage. Well, it doesn't take a whole lot.
Just ahead of Nigel is Michele Alboreto. Frank Williams looks on. Here's another look.
See that? He goes to line up to turn the very fast right-hander onto the Brabham straight, hooks the left wheels over that curve. That loses your grip, and there's nothing you can do except go straight on. Look at this. Completely misses the corner. You just look at it, was enough runoff area. Mansell says, thank you very much, make my job easier. And flies down the inside.
Mansell's helmet never turned to see where he'd gone. Mansell goes around Michele Alboreto, the last Italian to win a race for Ferrari. Michele may be bidding farewell to Formula One. That is almost assured. As this final race of 1994 comes to a close, it's rumored he will continue to drive in touring cars with Alfa Romeo. The fine gentleman closes out his Formula One career.
Even if Berger is quicker than Mansell, Mansell now has the advantage of track position. And who will drive for that man there next year? Frank Williams? Will it be Nigel Mansell? Will he get a chance to equal Jim Clark's and Alain Prost's pole position number of 33? Mansell now with this weekend has 32 pole positions. But he has never won in Formula One here, but he did win the IndyCar race.
Here's a look at past winners of this race. You don't see Nigel Mansell in that group. Terry Boutsen in the rain-shrouded 1989 affair where just about everybody went off. And the late Ayrton Senna gave us that incredible picture as the wheel of his McLaren came right into the camera on the back of Martin Brundle's Brabham. 2.6 seconds celebrating Mansell from Berger? I don't think so. It might be that way at the start-finish line, but not out here. And then a big gap back to Martin Brundle in third. As you can see, Brundle fairly safe from Mika Hakkinen in fourth. That 10-second penalty was painful. Hakkinen leads Rubens Barrichello, but only just. And then there's a big gap back to Olivier Panis, about to pick up a point, it would appear, for the Ligier team that has made such great strides in 1995. They will have another engine next year, but that's a subject for the off-season. We'll be back for more from Adelaide.
Had to get that one in.
Jean-Denis Delatraz of Switzerland, known as Alcatraz to
many of his
Formula
friends.
One drivers, you betcha. There's Nigel Mansell hopping sideways on the washboard bumps that mar the road surface of this street circuit in Adelaide, Australia. One of the best street circuits in the world, but it suffers from some of the same maladies of street circuits anywhere. It is not a racetrack in the proper sense of the word. There's Gerhard Berger, who had the lead in this race until he overcooked a corner. In fact, this very corner, and Nigel Mansell squirted by into the lead.
$12 million he gets paid, and he made a very basic mistake as somebody is off on the left-hand side there, backs it down the escape road. Is that Blundell?
Yes, I believe it is. The Tyrrell of Mark Blundell.
And he hit something, or somebody hit him.
Want to say hello to Mario Andretti, who told me he'd be watching our broadcast today. Of course, Nigel Mansell's former IndyCar teammate and a former Ferrari driver, enjoying his IndyCar retirement, not motor racing retirement, we're told. Congratulations on a great career, Mario.
Arrivederci, Mario, only from the IndyCar world. I know you're busier than ever now because your name seems to pop up with all sorts of promotions of your new book and, of course, your new wine. So you will be busier than ever and enjoy every day of it.
And he's nicked us for both thus far. Gerhard Berger, no doubt he'd kick himself for letting the lead slip away if he could shift his legs inside that very tight Ferrari cockpit.
Lazy is one lap down. Obviously, you know that. You see him just in the top of our picture. Still running fast, but had a bad pit stop earlier. Had a moment on the racetrack earlier. You see Blundell's car being dragged back down the escape road. That was the escape road that caused so many problems earlier this weekend. Mansell's been down there a few times.
Much has been made about Nigel Mansell's physical size. He is a fairly big man, but he is very fit and not as big as you might think. A week ago at Suzuka, Japan, he was put on the scales along with his teammate, and it turns out Nigel weighed a kilo, 2.2 pounds less than Damon Hill. Damon Hill is commonly thought of as the Ichabod Crane of Formula One. Very slim.
If Mansell manages to win this and beat the Ferrari, I'm sure he'll go down to Jean, gets it sideways under braking. I'm sure he'll go down the pit lane to Jean Todt and stick his finger up his nose saying, yes, what was that about you saying I'm washed up and I'm too old for Formula One? Here's your answer.
Might have a word with Niki Lauda as well. What was that about running those non-competitive IndyCar races, that I'm not fit enough for this kind of thing?
Lazy racing, he called it.
That's right, lazy racing. Niki
Lauda also in Dreamland.
He's going to be hearing about that for a long time, I'm sure. From you, more than likely. We have to take another quick time out as the Sauber of Heinz-Harald Frentzen breaks up the lead battle between Mansell and Berger momentarily. We'll be right back.
Have just ruined the battle for the race here. 2 seconds Gerhard Berger has lost behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Looks more like Andrea De Cesaris in the car, blocking the leaders, has no idea what he should be doing or where he should be. No excuse for that. When the leaders come up behind you, you should have enough presence to know where they are, what they're doing, and get out of their way.
Since you mentioned Andrea De Cesaris, we probably should not let the season finale go by without bidding Andrea farewell as well as Michele Alboreto. Andrea, of course, the record holder for Grands Prix without a victory, more than 200 races. Nigel Mansell starting his 185th Grand Prix this weekend.
2 reliable Ferraris at this late stage in the race. 10 laps to go. Not often we've seen that this year. Both cars running so strong. Just shows you how a long pit stop and a moment on the racetrack can cost you a possible rostrum position, because Alesi clearly has the speed here.
What was the last time this year both Ferraris and both McLaren Peugeots were still running late in the race while both Benettons and one Williams were out?
Never. Never this year.
That's the short answer. Also the correct one.
John Todd, the man leading this team now, very critical here this weekend of other teams. He said he is convinced that not just one team, and by that he meant Benetton, look at the carbon smoke from Häkkinen's car, but not just one team, he believes, has cheated on the new rules this year. He believes lots more teams have also. Pretty strong words from the Frenchman Jean Todt, who now leads the Ferrari team. Top 6.
Olivier Penny goes out the bottom of your screen. Here comes Martin Brundle. I mentioned the tough luck that he's had throughout the year. It seems when something has gone wrong with this car and engine combination, it seems to happen to Brundle first. But he's running in 3rd place now, and wouldn't a podium be a great finish to his season?
Here's all the bumpy David, 2nd, 3rd gear.
As far as we were concerned, it looked like you had it really under control.
Well, I pushed him very hard all the way. It was a terrific race, and all I can say is that it's over now, and it's a bit of an empty feeling, but I think I gave him a good run for his money, and he certainly was feeling the pressure because he ended up falling off the road.
Well, that's it. You couldn't really do any more than that, could you?
No, and I saw the opportunity. I thought, I've got to go here, but it didn't happen.
So, in other words, you'd say that's sport, that's racing?
I'm afraid so. That's motor racing. I'm afraid that going into the last race with 1 point deficit to Michael is always going to be, unfortunately, putting you in the position where you've got everything to lose. Well, I couldn't win in that sort of situation, and I think I would want to say that everyone in the Williams team deserves some sort of medal this year, because we've been through a hell of a tough time, and to be here at least at the last race fighting to win the championship and looking very strong, looking competitive. The Renault engine was strong and the whole team were terrific, and I'd just like to say thanks to all of them this year, and we'll come back next year.
Great, thanks a lot.
You may recognize that voice during the interview. That is Barry Sheene, multi-world motorcycle champion from England, now lives in Australia and works for Australian television, Channel 9 down there.
He took Damon Hill off on a bit of a holiday preceding this race. They went off to race jet skis. Barry Sheene promptly broke his wrist. And as Damon so helpfully put it, better him than me. But it's all over for this year for Damon Hill. He will be 2nd in the World Championship by 1 point to Michael Schumacher, who clinched it in a collision of the contenders, a racing accident. Down to his teammate just ahead, Gerhard Berger, who in turn is running second to race leader Nigel Mansell in this final event of the 1994 Formula One season. Bob Varsha, along with Derek Daly, glad to have you with us for these final laps of the 1994 season that has had so much triumph and tragedy, controversy, and a little humor along the way as well. Let's take a look at our Haviland race summary. Nigel Mansell leads the way right now after 3 lead changes among 3 drivers. Fastest lap set by Michael Schumacher before he threw his Benetton off the racetrack and clouded the wall, got back on just in time to have a coming together with Damon Hill, and in that moment the World Driving Championship for this season was decided. Michael Schumacher clinches it. The Constructors' Championship goes to Williams-Renault for the 3rd year in succession. Cars out of the race. Schumacher and Hill. Jean Delatraz, his Formula One debut is now over. Attrition has been heavy, as it often is on street circuits with very little runoff. Nigel Mansell might break his jinx and win a race here in Adelaide, his adopted hometown, so to speak. His sister and her family live here. Nigel is always welcome in Australia, both as an IndyCar driver and a Formula One pilot. He has been shark fishing. He's been on quiz shows. Everywhere he goes, he is mobbed. As I mentioned earlier, he's not only popular, he has qualified on pole, he has raced well, and now it appears that he might be a winner in his abbreviated return to Formula One in 1994. And one would think that would just about seal his contract for 1995 as Frank Williams' driver. Let's take a look at what the 1995 Formula One schedule looks like. Yellow arrows indicate races that are tentative, and it would be a shame if Formula One did not return to Argentina, where the maestro, Juan Manuel Fangio, is not in the best of health, and it would be good to have that opportunity to go and salute him next March. The San Marino Grand Prix at Imola is also tentative, pending changes to that racetrack in the aftermath of the tragic events of this year in which 2 drivers were killed. Many of the races take their traditional positions. Britain 2 weeks removed from France. I wonder if that might change before next year. The Grand Prix of Europe, an event that moves around the European continent. 17 races on the tentative schedule, which means we must lose 1 before the season opens next spring. And we hope you'll be there to enjoy it with us. 4 laps remaining. We'll take a quick timeout and return for the checkered flag at the final event of the 1994 season. Stay with us. Whoa, biggest possible way in the McLaren. From 4th position, it appears to be all right, but that car has taken a pounding.
He has obviously made very heavy contact, backwards and sideways. Course marshal says he's okay, goes in, has a word with him first. Our host broadcaster, Channel 9. Oh, here it is, here, under braking. And that looks like the end of the Brabham Straight, I believe, where so many cars, yes it is, goes over the curb, on the way down the Brabham Straight. Watch what happens under braking. Watch the curb on the left side.
Just snapped away from him.
Snapped so fast it either locked the rears or something broke, but Mika Hakkinen, violent crash. 4th place is gone, and now Barrichello moves into that 4th place, and Alesi gets into the top 6.
We were watching that carbon dust coming off the wheels of Hakkinen's car, off those brake discs. I wonder if Mika Hakkinen didn't break a brake disc. I mean, he had more carbon dust than anyone else by far, and I wonder if perhaps the brakes didn't finally let go. They only need to do so at 1 corner in order to throw him off.
And that was the infamous wooden plank that you saw underneath the McLaren there as it got hoisted away. Mansell behind one of the Ligiers gets a wave down the inside and gets down nice and clean. What a violent crash from Mika Hakkinen. Has the rears locked up. Rears are clearly locked. Sails off, loses some bodywork, and here's the contact. Look at the rear wing. Smashes the rear wing. 190 miles an hour in qualifying, so he probably had that impact at about 145 or 150 miles an hour. We have to take a quick timeout. We'll do that in return for the checkered flag here. Back in Adelaide, Australia, less than 2 laps remain in the 1994 Formula One season. You ride with Gerhard Berger.
And a mistake cost him a Grand Prix win, because he certainly seems to have enough speed, possibly enough speed that could have kept him ahead of Nigel Mansell, but that was a very costly mistake. The top 6 flashes by. Martin Brundle, so far, he will taste some champagne, but he's been this close before and hasn't made it to the checkered flag.
Mika Hakkinen dropped out of the race in the most dramatic possible way with a snap spin and a horrific crash at the end of the 190-mile-an-hour Brabham straightaway. You ride with Jean Alesi, his teammate just ahead. Now Alesi unofficially moves up into the points with Hakkinen out. Although he is a lap down to his teammate Gerhard Berger, and this man Nigel Mansell looking for his first victory. He is on his last lap in Adelaide.
Impressive weekend for Nigel Mansell. On the pole on Friday, then went out Saturday. Even in the wet, he was the fastest man. This morning, in the warm-up on full tanks, he was the fastest man again. Got a bad start, too much wheel spin. Got beaten at the first corner by Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher, and then took advantage of other people's problems. The 2 leaders crashed, of course, left him in the lead. Then he lost it in a pit stop. Then Gerhard Berger led, and he handed to him on a plate. He has not made a mistake.
Nigel Mansell showing complete command of Grand Prix racing following nearly 2 full years off of the circuit. A remarkable achievement, both as an athlete and as a racing driver specifically.
And remarkably, he had virtually no testing in this car before he came back for these last 3 races. Had a bit of a run before Jerez. Here it goes.
With a flourish, the flagman at Australia waves the checkered flag. The 31st Grand Prix victory for Nigel Mansell. Is there anything he cannot do in a race car? Congratulations to Nigel. Gerhard Berger comes across in 2nd position, and well-deserved. And the 2 old rivals exchange pleasantries on their cool-down lap. What a season it has been. Not the least of which a return victory for Nigel Mansell. There is Martin Brundle. His teammate Hakkinen is out of the race. And a 3rd place for the McLaren Peugeot of Englishman Martin Brundle.
Possibly he has to get through 2 more corners, remember.
Yeah, with Brundle's luck, I guess we shouldn't be premature.
Oh, he gets her sideways.
A little bit of a flourish there. One of the Minardi's has stopped, but Martin Brundle takes a podium.
What a personal triumph it is for Nigel Mansell to score a pole position and then win the last Grand Prix of the year.
The rest of the finishers make their way across. Following this race, the spectators will be down in the garage area where the Formula One teams will be selling off parts of their uniforms, bits and pieces of the race cars. It's a big garage sale here in Adelaide following the last race of the season. Congratulations to Nigel Mansell, who has done it again for his legions of fans. We saw the sign at the Grand Prix of Europe, "Give the keys to David Coulthard." Well, Nigel showed here today he definitely knows what to do in a race car.
By far and away, the most popular driver here this weekend was Nigel Mansell. Mobbed when he got to the airport. Look at the Union Jacks.
You saw that patch on his arm as he waved to the crowd. That was the seal of the constabulary on the Isle of Man, where Nigel made his home for many years. He's an honorary member of that fraternity. Imagine being stopped on the highway by honorary constable Nigel Mansell. He'd look in at you and say, "Who do you think you are, Nigel Mansell?" He goes to join his public, and we'll be back to Adelaide in just a moment. Back in Adelaide, Australia, Gerhard Berger climbs from his Ferrari in Parc Fermé and gets a big hug from the Lion of England, Nigel Mansell. What a day for those 2. And Martin Brundle comes over to shake the hand of his countryman. Welcome back to Formula One, Nige. this night you never left. Judge the man on his talent in a racing car, and you cannot be anything but impressed. This man can rise to the occasion. Just listen to the support that he enjoys. The crowd now filling the racetrack. Away go the gloves and the balaclava. Nigel breaks his personal 7-race losing streak here in Adelaide with his first victory in the Grand Prix of Australia. Our unofficial results: Mansell, Berger, and Brundle headed for the podium. Rubens Barrichello, Olivier Penny, and Jean Alesi pick up the balance of the points. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 7th place for Sauber, followed by Christian Fittipaldi, who had a great race moving up from well back in the field. Pierluigi Martini, J.J. Leto in the Sauber. Frank Lagorce in only his 2nd Grand Prix race, an 11th place finish. And Mika Hakkinen not running at the finish after an amazing crash at the end of the high-speed Brabham Straight. The crowd streaming through the Ayrton Senna chicane and on to the main straightaway. Everything you see here set up specifically for this race, after which it is all torn down and Victoria Park returns to being a horse track. A capacity crowd, more than 75,000 people on hand. Berger, Mansell, and Brundle from left to right. We'll be back to wrap things up, including our wrap of the 1994 Formula One season from Adelaide. Stay with us. Streets of Adelaide, Australia have been returned to the citizens of Adelaide and the spectators in this sellout crowd. Here's a look at the final 1994 Drivers' Championship. Michael Schumacher by 1 point over Damon Hill, and I think it's only appropriate that we show all of the point scorers in 1994. Of 46 drivers who attempted to qualify for a Grand Prix this season, 25 of them scored points, including Carl Wendlinger, who fortunately is on the comeback trail from his savage accident at the Grand Prix of Monaco, seen earlier this year on ESPN. In the Constructors' Championship for the 3rd straight year, it goes to Williams-Renault coming from behind to overcome Benetton Ford, and Ferrari, despite all of their problems, comes home 3rd, while McLaren Peugeot completes their first season under Ron Dennis without a Grand Prix victory. 11 of 14 teams scored this year as well. Nigel Mansell collects the booty of his first victory here on the streets of Adelaide, the 31st of his career. It's been a memorable season. Derek Daly, your thoughts?
Well, this afternoon in particular, yet again, both title contenders crash, and the championship is then decided. However, it was not deliberately done this time. 2 drivers on the rostrum here as Ian Harrison accepts the manufacturer's trophy. 2 drivers, Mansell and Brundle, looking for a job for next year, and Mansell's streak continues. He has won a race every single year since 1985.
Down in the garage area, Michael Schumacher dedicated his World Driving Championship to the memory of Ayrton Senna, who along with Roland Ratzenberger died in separate racing crashes at the Grand Prix of San Marino this year, the first drivers to do so in 12 years of Formula One, and they will be missed. Checkered flag coverage of this Grand Prix of Australia will be coming your way Monday, November 21st at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 p.m. Pacific here on ESPN. And our Formula One Year in Review will be coming your way Monday, December 26th at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 p.m. on Christmas Day on the Pacific Coast. Coming up next, Sports Weekly with Robin Roberts, including a look at NBA lifestyles in the wake of Magic Johnson's HIV admission, plus a coverage of the 49ers Cowboys Championship. I'm Bob Varsha. For Derek Daly, thanks for being with us. We leave you with this tribute to the world champion.